It's the Fix California Hour on the John Phillips Show. Johnny's on vacation. He's back on Monday. So it's Randy Wang here, 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. You can email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. Our next guest is the current district attorney of Los Angeles County. You can get him online at Nathan Hochman, DA, and nathanhochman.com. District Attorney Nathan Hochman, welcome back to the John Phillips Show.
Thank you very much for having me on.
So, Nathan Hochman, I saw you at a press conference just a few days ago with Assemblyman Mark Gonzalez and the LA County Sheriff and a member of the LA City Council advocating for Gavin Newsom to sign AB 476, a bill that would crack down on copper wire theft, something that has plagued many parts of Los Angeles, but especially downtown LA, where the 6th Street Bridge has been in complete darkness for quite a while now. What exactly would this bill do if Gavin Newsom signs it?
So the whole deal with copper wire theft is that many years ago, I noticed that there were a lot of streetlights out. And I thought that the light bulbs had burned out or something like that had gone on. And then I looked into it more deeply and found out that what criminals were stealing were the actual copper wire inside the streetlights that was keeping the light bulb on. And they were doing that all over the county. They were going beyond that. They went to the 6th Street Bridge, one of our iconic bridges. They stole over 11,000 miles of copper wire. The street value, $11,000 to them. The replacement value, $2.5 million to us. And so this is a widespread problem, and it not only affects streetlights and bridges. Turns out that telecommunications wires, these are the wires for landlines that help get you emergency services. They're cutting into those wires and stealing the copper out of that. And even worse, they think the fiber optic cables actually have copper in them. They don't. But they cut the fiber optic cables recently, and they put 50,000 customers in the dark without their internet service. So this is a huge issue, and the question was how to tackle it. Do you go after each one of the copper thieves, or do you go after where they're trying to turn that copper into money, which are junk and metal recyclers? And we're talking the illegal ones. And what AB 476 does is it ratchets up the penalties on the junk and metal recyclers and says to them, look, guys, you got to certify the origin of the copper you are buying. And if the person doesn't have the ability to tell you where he got the copper from and prove it, you can't accept it, and you can't give them money. And if you do, you're going to be violating a whole bunch of criminal laws. You're going to go to jail, and we're going to fine the heck out of your business. So AB 476, the only people who don't support AB 476 are the criminals. And since I'm absolutely convinced, and I said this very publicly, that unless Gavin Newsom is a handmaiden of criminals, which I don't think he wants to be, he needs to sign this bill like today, like in the next hour. Get his pen, pull it out, put pen to paper, sign the bill, and really sock it to these illegal junk and metal recyclers who are making copper theft a big deal issue in this county.
It's such a different issue than so many other stolen goods and fencing that we've talked about, because I would imagine it's not so easy to get this stuff on a truck and take it across state lines or to another country. You got to imagine these materials are being smelted and resold right here, and it's not like you can just do this anywhere. How hard is it to identify where the copper wire is getting taken to?
Well, again, there are hundreds of junk and metal recyclers throughout the county. Now, I don't want to suggest that all of them are acting illegally. A lot of them are acting completely legitimately. In fact, it's the legitimate ones that are incensed that they have to compete against these illegitimate ones because they're paying a fraction for this illegally obtained copper. These are people who are literally, they look at a street wire, they cut it. They don't care if the street light went down, or your internet service went down, or your landline went down, or that if you need to call for emergency services that you can't do it. They just scoop up the copper. They run to these illegitimate metal recyclers, and up until now, the metal recyclers haven't really had to ask, "Hey, where did you get that copper? Prove it to us. Take some pictures. Take some thumbprints." And then if it turns out that it's stolen, they can then report on the people who stole it to law enforcement. But what they've been doing is that they've been pocketing these illegal profits, melting it down, as you said, and then it's almost impossible when they then give it to the next layer up in this chain to then say it came from an illegal source. That's why you got to get it at the junk and metal recycling level.
I think that's really important. That's something that we've been asking for such a long time is, if you take away the incentive to sell this to these people, then we're not going to see so much destruction. Because as you have mentioned, the repairs on this so vastly outweigh the minuscule profits that people are getting from ripping out this wire and damaging our infrastructure.
It's so true. And let me give you a real-world example how this resulted, I believe, in someone being murdered. You had back in May, I think it was of 2024, the actor Johnny Wachter got murdered in downtown L.A. near 11th Street. When he went back to his car at about 3 a.m., 3 guys were stealing the catalytic converter, and they shot him dead when he confronted them. The reason I think they picked his car at that exact street area is that all the streetlights are out. The copper wire had been stolen. Those streetlights hadn't been repaired yet. And it was in the total dark when they were trying to steal his catalytic converter. That is how it's not just about streetlights. It's about safety in our neighborhoods. And so many neighborhoods spend the nighttime now in the dark because these copper wire thieves don't give a darn about the safety in the neighborhood. They just want this wire either for their personal greed, they're fueling a drug habit, or whatever they're doing with the money that they're getting from these illegal metal and junk recyclers. And that's what we need to put an end to.
Now, a few months ago, the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, put out an advisory to all law enforcement agencies about copper wire theft, highlighting the current laws that we have on the books that should be enforced. And the thing that I noticed is whether you're talking about the people who are literally stealing the wire or the people who are purchasing the stolen goods and reselling them, every single criminal offense that was listed on the Attorney General's advisory was a misdemeanor or a wobbler. Can you explain to the audience what a wobbler is?
Sure. A wobbler is a situation where a prosecutor actually has some discretion. You can charge it as a felony, and a felony by definition means that you can have a punishment of more than a year in prison or jail. Or a misdemeanor, which by definition means you have a year or less of jail time. And so in these type of situations, when these cases arrive on my desk, our instructions are basically to charge it as a felony. The city attorney's office, it has the ability in Los Angeles to charge anything as a misdemeanor. The DA's office can charge felonies. So if it hits our desk, we're going to charge it as a felony because we need to send the word out, both to the people who are stealing it and then the people who are purchasing it and fencing it effectually, that this really affects neighborhoods. This affects quality of life in this county. And if you want to continue to do it, here are the consequences, and we're going to enforce the law.
I really appreciate you clarifying that because it is good to know that your office is pursuing felonies with this because, unfortunately, when we see the majority of these crimes being, charged as misdemeanors in some places, these days and age in California, misdemeanors are basically a citation.
Yeah, and you're right. If it's charged as a misdemeanor, very often what will happen is that the officer won't arrest someone. They'll write them a ticket, effectively, a cite and release type of situation. So the person, won't even come down to the station. It's not even a book and release situation. They'll get effectively a speeding ticket and be told to show up in court in 90 days. And often they don't. So again, since the problem is a real problem, again, they only might get, and I'll use the 6th Street Bridge, $11,000 for all that copper they stole. But that's a $2.5 million replacement situation. And they should be held liable for a $2.5 million crime.
We're speaking with L.A. County District Attorney Nathan Hochman. You can get him online at Nathan Hochman DA. Now, another subject that I know you're passionate about because I've seen you hold several press conferences about it is the lawlessness that we see when it comes to street takeovers in Los Angeles County. What is your office doing about street takeovers when it comes to not just the people perpetrating it, but the organizers? And what are some of the challenges in tackling this?
The street takeovers turn out to, again, be a huge quality of life issue for the communities in which these street takeovers happen. And let me describe what a street takeover is. Picture it's about 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning, often on a Friday or a Saturday night. And you've got a situation where literally hundreds of people, generally under the age of 18, show up at an intersection. They block all four parts of that intersection. They then create a situation where these cars come speeding down and they're doing drifting donuts in circles around the intersection, much to the cheers of everyone there. This stuff is being videoed for social media. Again, when the police show up, it's a mad scramble to get out of that area. Turns out, though, that there's three different types of people violating the law at the same time. You got the people who are engaged in the illegal driving. We prosecuted someone who tragically ended up killing with his car a 24-year-old when the car slid out of control. He now is doing 13 years in state prison. Then you have people who are profiting from it. Those are the promoters. They generally have thousands of people on their social media lists as followers. They put out these videos after the fact. They get money from all this operation. We recently charged one of those guys who was involved in 16 different street takeovers and basically said that if you're going to be someone who participates effectively by organizing this and telling people where to go, you too are subject to state prison. And even the spectators, it turns out, are violating the law when they congregate to spectate of a street takeover. And the problem with bringing a couple hundred young people in the middle of the night to an intersection is that when the street takeover is done, they generally are looking around and seeing what's there. They might see a 7-Eleven. They might see an AutoZone. And the next thing you know, they're ransacking the 7-Eleven. They're ransacking the AutoZone, creating, again, a whole additional amount of havoc in that community. So we have dedicated ourselves here in the DA's office, working with local law enforcement, California Highway Patrol, to go after these street takeovers, go after the promoters, go after the drivers, and if we need to, go after the spectators as well.
Now, do you think that there should be any accountability for the social media platforms that facilitate a place where people are financially profiting off of this illegal activity?
If the social media platforms are alerted that this is happening and we can show them what's happening and they allow this to continue, yeah, I actually do believe that the social media platforms can be effectively co-conspirators in helping a street takeover happen. I'm happy to say that very often when law enforcement points this out to the social media platforms, they'll take down the entire site ASAP. So many of the social media platforms are responsible when we point it out. Now, are they scouring their own platforms to find this stuff? Very often they're not. But they are very responsive when we bring it to their attention.
It's great to know. Last question before you go here. We're talking with LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman. You got sworn into office right around the same time that the voters in California and overwhelmingly Los Angeles County passed Proposition 36. I was wondering if you could give the audience just a progress report on what it's been like implementing that in Los Angeles County.
So Proposition 36 has provided a very valuable tool for law enforcement to go after the chronic and repeat offenders. So Proposition 36 had a number of different parts. I'll focus on two of them. One going after chronic thieves and one going after chronic illegal hard drug users. On the chronic theft situation, if you have two or more convictions for theft or burglary or robbery, and now you're back at it again. Those two convictions didn't deter you. You're going ahead and stealing again. Now that third conviction can be a Proposition 36 felony. So if you're stealing just under $950 and you thought you could just get away with a misdemeanor, no longer if you have those two prior convictions. And we have brought, since the statute came in play on December 18th, 2024, we've brought over 2,000 Proposition 36 felony theft cases to date. And that has been a huge relief to local businesses, small businesses, medium businesses, even the big box retailers, because they had people that were literally coming in the morning, grabbing a cup of coffee and a donut, then showing up in the afternoon and grabbing a six-pack of beer, and there was very little that they could do to them before Proposition 36. Now, if you get charged with a Proposition 36 felony, there's no more book and release or cite and release. You're actually going to spend time in jail waiting for your arraignment, and then if your record's big enough, time in a state prison. And the same thing we can say for illegal hard drug use. You got two or more convictions. That third conviction can be a treatment-mandated conviction where a court can actually order you into drug treatment with a felony, by the way, something that courts were basically powerless to order before Proposition 36 came online. So it has been a very useful tool to go after the chronic thieves and the chronic illegal hard drug users, since, for this entire year.
You know what's funny is a few months ago, I was listening to an LA County Board of Supervisors meeting, and they were having a hearing on the progress report on their plan to close Men's Central Jail in Los Angeles County without replacing it with anything. And according to the people at MCJ, because of Prop 36 and the higher inflow of people that are right now in the jails, which means they're off the streets and not victimizing people, it's making their plans to close the jail almost impossible, according to them.
Well, I have gone on many radio programs, TV programs, podcasts, and social media to say that Men's Central Jail, built in 1963, had a 30 or 40-year shelf life, which means it should have been torn down about 20 years ago, and a state-of-the-art facility for both mental illness rehabilitation, drug treatment, general rehabilitation, and detention needed to be put in its place. In 2020, that was going to happen. The County Board of Supervisors had studied the problem for 12 years. They had allocated $2.2 billion to build this state-of-the-art facility that would have had 1,000 mental health beds. But then they had a different political change of winds. Care first, jails last. They paid a $70 million breakup fee to the general contractor who was all ready to start construction in 2020. It would have been done by September of 2025, last month. Instead, the board said, we'll put resources in the community. So what have they put as far as building facilities to deal with serious mentally ill people and serious and medium serious offenders in our community? They have built absolutely zero in the last 5 years. Absolutely zero. They have completely been derelict in their duties to keep us safe and create a situation where people who commit serious crimes in our county actually have a place to get rehab and be detained in a healthy, effective manner. Shame on them. Shame on them. So I am not going to kick this can down the road. I'm going to bring it to the voters, either with the board's help or without the board's help, and say, even though I'd like to spend the money on something else, we cannot go another year without actually building a state-of-the-art jail, detention, mental health facility in this county.
Wow, that's some news right there. Nathan Hochman, the LA County District Attorney, thank you so much for coming on with us, explaining to the audience what you've been doing in that position for the last year. We really appreciate you spending some time with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
There you go. That's Nathan Hochman, the District Attorney of LA, the guy that replaced this jackass.
Do a Google on YouTube.
And we are very, very happy to have him in that office. It's Randy Wang here. I want to thank Nathan Hochman for coming on. I played that whole press conference about AB 476 on my local show, The News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I really wasn't convinced because it sounded like we were increasing fines, and that really didn't seem like as much of a deterrent as I thought it would be. But hearing him clarify that when one of these things goes on his desk that is defined in the law as a wobbler, he's having his district attorneys put felonies on the books for copper wire theft, that was very reassuring. Now, we'll see if Gavin actually signs it, but I really appreciate Nathan Hochman coming on, explaining what he is doing in that office, and it is a big difference from the guy we used to have.
Quite frankly.
We got an hour and a half to go. If you're on hold and you want to comment on anything you've heard today, we'll take your calls next. 800-222-5222. It's the Fix California Hour. Johnny's on vacation. He's back on Monday. It's Randy Wang here. And the phone number to join us, you want to comment on anything we've been talking about today, 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go right to the phones and go to Albert in Lake County. Albert, hello.
Hi, Randy. Thank you for taking my call. And also thank you for having your guests on. It was really interesting to listen to somebody who maybe Los Angeles has a chance now with somebody who's going to follow the law.
It was definitely a step in the right direction, I'll tell you that.
That was nice. But the reason why I'm calling, though, is what you did with the Katie Porter tape the other day was mind-boggling. And what made me think about it was if she would have just stayed in the closet, she had a better chance of winning the governorship. But it was like the Joe Biden moment when Joe wanted to have the debate. And as soon as America saw him, it's like he was gone the next day. And I think Katie Porter just accomplished that.
Well, it's a funny thing, none of these people have the name ID of candidates in past elections. When you're talking about an Arnold Schwarzenegger, even Gavin Newsom had a lot of name ID. So there's a lot of people that may have heard the name Katie Porter, and sometimes, especially very early out in these election polls where we're a year and a half away from voting, it'll mostly be based on what's the name that you know. But when people actually watch video of her reacting to very simple questions from a very balanced reporter, it doesn't come off great. And then when everyone starts talking about that and the staffers start coming out with the videos of her cursing out her staffers for nothing.
Get out of my shop.
Well, it definitely creates a more crystallized opinion that certain voters have for her. We'll see what the next polls say, but I got to imagine there's a lot of people who said they were voting for Katie Porter that didn't know that this was Katie Porter.
I agree with you. In other words, Katie Porter. All right, now, God, I've seen the Katie Porter. It's like anybody has the right mind could never vote for that young lady.
Of course, then the question is, who do you support now?
I know. We're in trouble here in California.
Thanks so much for the call, Albert. Appreciate it. We're getting a lot of calls from Lake County. Love to see it. I mean, do the Porter callers go to Tony V? Do they go to the other guy named Tony? Do they go to Betty Yee? I don't know. Maybe they go to Steve Hilton. Maybe. Let's go to Robert in Santa Clara. Robert, hello.
Randy, you're awesome. Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned that she's in the teachers' housing. They're proposing some housing out here on the west side of town. It's going to take over a vineyard next to the West Valley College. It's a pretty nice area. And it's for all these tenured barbarians. So you got to be one of these, brainwashing re-educators. And she fits the mold. I mean, she's the total prototype because she's mean and she's ready to teach more woke and more microaggressions and all the great stuff. I mean, and I think that's what a lot of, like you said, it couldn't fly in Ohio, and I got your joke. But it could eventually if they, transform minds. But also, everything gets piloted here in California to infect the rest of the country.
Well,
yeah, that's the kind of point I wanted to make.
Gavin does like to say we're the America's coming attractions, but that could be for good and bad things.
Yeah, well, I wish you guys do something about his little Vistra battery fire where everyone got chemical burns and, expose him for, not getting those people evacuated. Yeah, the guy's pretty dastardly. He's totally unaccountable. There's
been so many incidents like that, and the operators of these battery plants are not being held accountable, to use one of Gavin's favorite words, and we don't even understand the repercussions of the toxic chemicals that are in these things. So yeah, if you're in Monterey County, you don't want one of those things in your neighborhood. If you're in San Diego County, you don't necessarily want it near homes, because if these things catch fire, it's a disaster.
But he's a stakeholder, you know that, and no one got evacuated. So you got little kitties and chickens and livestock, and everyone working the fields, and all the food, systemically poisoned. And you didn't hear a peep about it. Only on a show like this you can bring it to light, or some random YouTube channel that gets suppressed.
Well, we try to do what we can here. Robert, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. It is interesting, right? In California's quest to go green and to save the environment, we now have tons and tons and tons of batteries in neighborhoods where if they catch on fire, like what happened in the Palisades, they create so many toxic chemicals and carcinogens. Oh, boy. Let's go to Max in San Francisco. Max, hello.
Yes, Tijuana by the Bay. So here's the big question. Your show is fantastic today. The big question is, who is suffering more from mental illness? The guy who set the fires and was caught in Florida, or the people who reelect Ricardo Lorca and reelect again and again Karen Bass? We've proven that it can be done. Take 10 people with you to vote, as Mark Levin says. You've got to get these people out of office. You've got to wake up. Look what they've done to you. Your place burns down. Karen Bass gives you the proverbial finger, goes out to Ghana, and Lorca goes out to have his spa. And you people have to wake up. I've heard a lot of complaining. But if you're not going to do anything about it, then you deserve what you get. Where do these people come from? Randy, I urge you to look up George Carlin. These people come from us. Garbage in, garbage out. Please vote. Get them out of there. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for the call, Max. Appreciate it. I sure hope, and I'm always optimistic, maybe to a fault, but I sure hope, based on the disaster that we lived through in January, which feels like so much longer ago than 10 months ago, is that one of the things that I hope people understand is you've really got to pay attention to who is insurance commissioner. And I don't know if a whole lot of voters ever paid attention to who Ricardo Lara was. It was the D on the dot, and I'm not kidding, people decided to vote for him in 2018 just so we could say that he was the first openly gay elected official.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Even though he had no experience when it comes to the insurance industry, broke promises not to take their money, and has been shown to be gallivanting around the country. He got reelected in 2022. Now, most of the massive cancellations have happened after that, but he's termed out. There will be no more Ricardo Lara doing this job. We only have to suffer with him for another year and a few months. But whoever's running for that job, they need to be vetted. And even though so many California voters are apolitical and they don't really pay that much attention to the last minute, and that's fine, if you don't know who the person is, leave that part blank. If you don't know who the judge is, leave it blank. If you don't know who these people are running for insurance commissioner and you don't want to do the research, don't give them your vote. If you want to do the research and you say that's my person, all for it. Vote for who you ever want to. But the last thing anybody should be doing these days, when you have the ballot at home, you have the Google in front of you, is don't cast your vote for some name that you don't know who they are or what they stand for. Just having the political party next to their name doesn't mean anything. Because you look at Los Angeles, a Democrat could mean Tracy Park, or a Democrat could mean Ulysses Hernandez.
Because we are the defund the police people, right?
We've got to do our research. And if you don't want to put in the time to do that research, then just leave those categories blank. That's my advice. Let's go to Bill in Irvine. Bill, hello.
Hey, Randy, 2 points on Katie Porter. Here, number one, I think we need to try to make her stay in the race, and here's why. Any replacement for Katie Porter on the left will be harder for Steve Hilton or Chad Bianco to beat. Katie Porter is a slob. She's mean. She's nasty. If you look at that CBS local reporter interview, the eyes, if you look at Katie Porter, she's an angry, narcissistic woman. She has this, when she says, there's me, I'm me, and like I'm all this and you're nothing.
I'm me.
And how dare you ask me this question? How dare you ask follow-ups? I think that video clip if YouTube allows it to exist on all the platforms like Dave Rubin and Megyn Kelly, I think that needs to be played over and over, along with the team's call clip that you played. I'm afraid that they will replace Katie Porter with a better candidate, and it's going to be hard to beat. I think that those clips need to be played 8-10 months from now, and hopefully the people on the left will see the evil, narcissistic, nasty woman that she is and vote for Steve Hilton or Chad Bianco. I hope they do not replace her. We need her to stay because she is a nasty woman, and she is no good for California. She's going to run California further into the ground than it already is.
I think you make a really strong point. And to that point, she is definitely running to the left of everybody. If, let's say, she drops out and all the support goes behind somebody who's running more to the center like Antonio Villaraigosa, that does make it more difficult for a Republican to win. Yeah. So you make a really strong point, Bill.
We need to keep her in because she is an unattractive candidate all the way around.
I think we need to keep her in just for show content.
That's right. And I hope YouTube doesn't deplatform those clips like they did to Steve Bannon and a lot of other people, because YouTube, you can't trust YouTube. I hope those clips stay on there because when you watch those, she does not look like a person anyone would want to vote for.
Yeah, I don't think YouTube's going to do anything about it. This originated on YouTube. This was a 30-minute compilation of these interviews that Julie Watts did that I don't even think aired on the television channel CBS 13. It was posted on their YouTube channel, and that's how I found it. And then I played it on this show, told everyone where it was, and then it spread like wildfire.
And you know Katie Porter's team is trying to demand YouTube take those clips off. Hopefully she will not be successful. And I bet you this, I bet we don't see Katie Porter doing any other interviews. She's just going to give speeches. She's not going to put herself in that position because she was shocked at the audacity of a reporter to actually ask a follow-up question. Can you believe it?
She's probably getting interview requests every 10 seconds for the rest of this campaign. It's going to be an exciting thing to watch. Bill, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it.
I'm me.
You are.
I'm running for governor because I'm a leader.
Yeah, you can't unring that bell. It's already everywhere, and it's not just on YouTube. It's on so many different social media platforms. There's no way of suppressing that video. It's everywhere, and people have seen it. In a age where only things that people pay attention to are whatever's going on in Washington or the big scandal du jour. This cut through, partially because it's really funny, but also because it's just so, takes the mask off. And you see who this person really is, where politicians always have these phony personas. And you've heard so many different stories of how people are different when the cameras are off. Well, if this is how she is when the cameras are on.
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
And this is what she's like when the Zoom camera is on.
Get out of my shot.
And we've heard the stories of what she's like when the cameras are off. Yeah, it's going to be a tough hill to climb, but I don't see her dropping out anytime soon. Let's go to Mike in Vallejo. Mike, hello.
Randy Wayne, great job, brother. And you're right. I'll bet Johnny is wound up tight in a drum that he had to miss this one. This is more entertaining. Oh, this is great. As far as the call from Valencia from last year, I think we might be missing something in it. I think there may be more to it. I think the Chubby Chaser guy, I think there might have been a motive behind it. In other words, he sees this behemoth over there holding up the wall, and maybe he's like the coach of a baseball team and they're 0 forever. He's thinking slump buster. This guy's thinking slump buster. I can get my kids out of this with one night with this thing over here. He had no idea who it was. He didn't care who it was. I think that might have been the motivation. And Randy, I already sent you an email. If you can please send that MP3 to me. I want my Little League team to learn what a slump buster is, brother.
If you send me an email asking for it, I'll email you the MP3, Mike. You got it. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. In fact, I think I already did. Let's go to Ralph in Whittier. Ralph, hello.
Hey, going back to your Nathan Hochman segment, I just wanted to say thanks for putting him on particularly that thing on the jail. I know he's spoken about it other places, but I think you're the first venue with a large enough audience for him to get that out there. And basically what he did was he just stuck a skinny finger in the eyes of each of the Board of Supervisors. And what I would like to see is yourself, your partner, other like-minded stations in the LA market, maybe give him 20, 30 minutes a week just to come in where you can say, hey, what's the status of the jails? What's going on with probation? What's going on with street takeovers? How's your budget? And just go over those things, because with him going that public and standing up to the board like that over the jails, he's going to need all the support he can get, because they will end up turning around and doing to him what they did to Villanueva, and they've already started by cutting his budget and his items.
Yes, I heard about that they
really
have started cutting his budget. And I will say, that is the most prominent politician in Los Angeles County to openly and forcefully criticize the Care First Jails Last initiative that this Board of Supervisors has put on the county to our detriment. And I did not know his stance on that. I'm glad that he pointed it out here, and that if the Board of Supervisors isn't going to listen to him, he's going to try to get a measure on the ballot, because we cannot just close that jail without replacing it.
No. That jail's original rated capacity was about 5,280. When I was there the second time in the mid-'80s, we had about 9,000 in there. We had roof sleepers, day sleep, the whole bit. You can't just bulldoze that jail. And there was a proposal to reopen Wayside East facility and Mariloma to offset the population while Central Jail was bulldozed and a new one was built. And that just went nowhere. But this board is they're going to do the same thing to him that they did to Alex. They did it the last meeting, what was it, last Tuesday, where they cut him off in his proposal, trying to get some of his budget and some of his items back. That's why I say he needs your guys' help. You, your partner, and a couple other radio stations in the area, because the local media is not going to show this. I saw what they did when Alex tried to do this, and they're going to treat him the same way.
Well, we're happy to have him on anytime he is available for us, and these are incredibly important issues that don't get nearly enough attention. And, Ralph, I thank you for paying as much attention as you do to it.
All right, man, you take it easy.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Have I told y'all lately that you're the best audience in radio? Our Southern California listeners on KABC, our Northern California listeners on KSFO, and everyone who's listening on the stream from around the world, we're big fans of you.